All right, sup nerds. Hope you're all doing well today. Wanted to give a quick little video today, a little chit chat. We got some long form ones coming out here, I think tomorrow when you see this. But beside the point, kind of want to talk about Lorcana. Obviously, we've had a unique relationship in this on this channel with Lorcana, given the previous video of Whiffin on Whispers in the Well. But wanted to give my thoughts on a couple of things that they're doing most recently. The collector booster boxes that were kind of announced, and I know when it was leaked, they kind of had a retracted statement where they were saying, we wanted to provide more context with this, etc. But realistically, we all know what's going on, especially after they've talked about it a bit more in depth. It's collector booster box. I don't like being negative, but yeah, bad idea. Hot take here, bad idea. But I want to kind of more discuss the reason that collector booster boxes are a bad idea, and I don't personally really like them as a product to begin with. So obviously, in collectibles, most of what we do for value is very comparative. I think it's a non-income. When we look at collectibles as a whole, they're non-income producing assets. So when we value their increase, what we're really asking the question is the person, who buys it from the guy who buys it from me going to think it's going to go up? And I know it sounds very convoluted, but a lot of times that's kind of how you look at art when you're investing. You're not really necessarily asking, will someone think it's valuable for me? It's, will the second person down the road find it valuable to continue its value? So if that made no sense, obviously you're just going to click off right now because I'm an idiot. But it's a whole. That's what we're asking with collectibles. And so a collector booster box has a good theoretical idea. Make something with very shiny cards, make something that's unique that people want to get, they want to hold, they want to risk if they're going to crack it, and then they want to store it, for once it's out of print and it's become a limited edition item, etc. But in reality, it's not really a good plan. When we compare to the two pillars, the one is Magic and the other is Pokemon. And I think it's a really unique thing that Pokemon doesn't have collector boxes. They have a skew of products, sure, but the largest brand in this space in the world didn't say, "Oh, we should do this." Instead, they release SIRs and IRs, just right in their normal booster pack, and then all these SKUs of other products are just booster packs put into them. From the ultra premium collections, the super premium collections, to the tins, to the booster boxes to begin with, to the individual packs, the ETBs. It's all just packs, and they're all the same pack. So to, I guess, consolidate the thoughts a little bit more, and kind of give a little bit more of what I was thinking. Collector boxes as a whole, I think, are a poor decision for a brand and a company because it dilutes and separates the cards. It makes it so when I buy a play booster, I know for a fact I'm not going to get that cool new chase card. I have to instead, pay this exorbitant price for this collector booster to try to get that. It makes it, one, confusing, and two, feels kind of bad just to open this other stuff unless there's an alternative reason to open it. So to compare a bit more, Pokemon is a collector's game. There's no question. Obviously, there is a competitive scene. Obviously, there's world tournaments. But, the main draw of Pokemon is to collect the cards, to catch them all, to, master set a set, to, have your Mewtwo binder or your Charizard binder or your Pikachu binder, or just all of the dog Pokemon or whatever it is, or just even get the new cool chase rare. I mean, we had a guy in the store today who bought of Pitch Black, bought a couple booster boxes from us, bought some blister packs, and we got our second wave, And I called him and let him know. I said, hey, we got a couple more if you like. He's like, hey, I pulled my chase. Perfect. Congrats. Like, that's awesome. But that he collected what he wanted to collect. And he was able to do that. So that's a collector mentality and a collector game. Magic, on the other end, frankly, is a player's game. There's no secret with me. That's always been the game I've personally played the most, and what I've always been into. From going to Grand Prix to Star City Games Opens to the Invitationals, regional qualifiers, all of that. And you know, growing up playing since I think I started playing Magic in like 2002. Was probably when I first started. I think the first card I picked up was from the Onslaught Legion Scourge block. Chroma Angel of Wrath is my favorite card, if anybody's ever curious. Because that was like the first one that my buddy had that I thought was, we'd never seen so much text on a card at the time. I was like, how do you get rid of this thing? But aside, it was, it's a player's game. So when, they're selling boxes for the longest time, it was one type of pack. And, I remember even sitting there, when you play, you didn't even want foils. It was like, this is a pain. Like, I'm not looking for that. I just give me just a card. It's like if somebody had a foil at deck that was very weird. It really wasn't something. I mean, when I first started playing, you didn't even have sleeves on your card, and the guy who showed up with sleeves was, doing too much. It's it's a very player focused game. Is what I'm getting at. The new art on cards didn't really matter. Sure, you might see a cool one, so you'd upgrade, but I play with Titan Strength a lot during the Theros block, and it's been reprinted several times. I couldn't even tell you what other versions there were. I just played with the one from Theros because who cared? And what that did was it kind of distorted my view early on of the value of a card. Because, when we looked at, Magic and we were used to it, there was no FOMO and hype and oh my God, what did I rip? Because when you pulled, whatever pack it was, let's use a modern one because it comes off the top of my head real quick. Murders at Karlov Manor. It's like you were looking to pull what Undercity Sewer. That was like not a chase card, but chase card, or like Delney, popped up, and you're like, holy cow! I pulled a $40 card. And in Magic, that's pretty nuts for standard. I know we got Badger World Cup now today, but back when Origins came out, Jace Vryn's Prodigy was insane because it had gone from unplayable bulk in the course of I think like two weekends to $100 card. And in Magic, we just did not have that. That's not what you didn't have $100 cards that were in standard. The only highly valuable cards were either alpha beta, obviously those put those to the side. But really in Magic, what made a card valuable was its playability and then its scarcity in the format that it was played. So it's like, you had some Library of Alexandria's, and some of those are basically anything in the Legacy Lands deck. That was, those were really expensive, but that was because they were played. They weren't graded and then put on a shelf. Magic is a player's game, and that's what drove it. So when I look at what made the collector box work over the past 5-6 years, it's that Magic wanted to shift the mentality of the player to incorporate the collector. And so they took this entire group of people who really didn't care about the art on the card all that much, really didn't care about the foiling on the card all that much. I remember it was a huge deal when Zendikar came out with just full art lands. That was, baffling. And yet there's no other game that doesn't have that kind of uniqueness to it. But, they took this group of people and they kind of said, keep doing what you're doing, but here's this new product that has some alternate art, that has some serialization, that has heavy foiling, that has these, very unique chase cards that you could grade if you wanted to. And then they worked the market. they worked the market for 6 years, 5 years, fine, um, before these things finally got accepted. I mean, you're still looking at collector boxes, Outlaws Thunder Junction, and things like that, where those collector boxes are not, they're not all that expensive. In Magic, I think, has been able to kind of make this adjustment. Whether you like the sets or not, when you see the Cosmic Foil Mind Stone or Soul Stone, you're like, oh, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. If you got a PCG or PSA, 10, you're like, that's a collector. That's pretty cool. I'm happy with that. If somebody graded Sensei's Divining Top, you'd be like, well, why'd you do that? So Magic had this core base and core purpose and core brand for 30 years that was about playing the game. And then Magic came along and said, hey, here's an additional product. Here's an additional option. If you're a pro tour player, we could get you a Cosmic Foil Mind Stone as a reward. I know that's not, but we could get you this as a reward, for winning or some unique piece. Or if you're a casual player and you pull this stellar Cosmic Foil Mind Stone out of a collector box, it's yours. That's a unique foiling. It's nowhere else. And it gave this enticement to say, I can continue to play the game I love, but I also now could get some new stuff. Sure, they could have just thrown them in the play boxes. Would that have been better? I don't know. Quite possibly, to be honest with you. Like, would have been awesome, right? Like, if I was just doing that. But if I take my mentality from when I was playing a lot, I don't know if I would have cared, especially if they were foil. If they were foil, I wouldn't have put them in my deck. Nobody would have. I mean, again, foiling, you don't play with it. They bend a little bit. It's just, there's very few decks, and you're only going to find them in heavy legacy tournaments where somebody's foil out their whole deck. But again, it's like, I don't know. So they made a call. They tried it. And because they had this giant player base, this giant casual base, this 30 years of, history and brand, it could work. And then that brand would give them time to adjust until they have pretty good products today. I mean, I think collector boxes are good today and they're going to stay long term. I don't think they're going anywhere. In Magic Simplified, there's no more draft. There's no more set boxes. We don't have little mini tins. We don't have a bunch of, extra stuff. You got play boosters for playing. You have collector boosters for collecting. Very straightforward, very simple. Pokemon has never done collectors. They make their packs the collectibles. It's the lottery ticket. It's the pull. That's great. These are why these brands and these pillars work. Magic works because they added something that its base could then take if they wanted to. And as we just kind of were thinking out loud, what if they would have just added it into the play? Would that have worked better? I don't know. Maybe. Kind of would have been kind of cool, but it's not what they did, and it worked though. But when you look at Lorcana, wrap it all the way back. Lorcana's already set the base of what they wanted to do, which was have a version that's playable and then have all the way up to the enchanted. So what the hell is going to be in the collector box? You're going to take all the enchanted, you're going to throw them in the collector box now? You're going to take all the foil, you're going to put them in there? Obviously, we'll wait and see. That's crazy. That's crazy. One, as a store, you're going to tank. You're going to tank your booster box pricing, is my guess. I could be wrong, but you're probably going to smoke it. It's, that's a huge bummer. You're going to torch it on price. Like, because now you're asking, do you have a player base who just needs to crack open boxes to build decks? I don't know. I know they got Worlds. That was kind of, down in Disney World or whatever. That was interesting. We'll see. I just think it's way too early. I think you came out of the gate good, got pretty rough, and you fixed it. Fabled fixed it. We're going, and it's getting cooler. And we're exploring more of the IP, and we're getting these dual cards now with like Soli and Boo, and you're getting all that stuff. And now you're gonna throw this thing in there. I think it's bad. I think just let it ride, keep exploring, momentum up, and go from there. It's just my take. It's my take on it. I think Lorcana shouldn't do that. I think they should stick with having really good art, really good IP. I mean, in keeping that all in the booster box. Let people pull it. Let somebody rips it. Be like, oh my god, I just got a $9,000 Buzz Lightyear. That's awesome. I mean, I'm sitting there on the phone with distribution, and he's telling me about one of his buddies who pulled that. That's awesome. Just it's just anecdotal. We're just talking. I got Riftbound. We had a guy come in the other day, and he was telling me he pulled a signature card out of a pack. Previously. That's the excitement. Keep that, Lorcana. Keep that. Don't don't separate that out. It would be my advice. Would be my structure. Would be my thought. So I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, you can always be wrong. The market could love it. Maybe they present it in a way. I just don't. I don't like when you take something away from the player base, or the customer. The customer. I don't like when you remove channels. I like when you add channels. Magic added that channel. Something we wouldn't have gotten these storybook. Using the Hobbit, you wouldn't get these storybook Gandalf or Smaug or whatever cards. Um, now we do, and they added in this new product, so you can still have the cool one, still have the, what do they call them? It's like a showcase version. You still get it. You still can have foils. You can still have all that. But also, if you want this other one, here it is, and here's your opportunity to get it. That's why I think it worked. I think it took a big base, big big brand, and then they added to it. They didn't take theirs, cut it in half, and say, we're gonna restrict that. That sucks. Sucks. So, all right. Well, that's all I got. I think that's pretty much it. I think we're pretty good on that. Little tape right there. But yeah, I just want to give my thoughts on the old Lorcana collector booster box thingamajig. Tell you that I'm still pretty high on the game. I think it's still going to do good. I think they're in a good spot. We'll see how they end up doing this, but I'm not super stoked on what they got going right now. And then on top of that, Riftbound is great. So I think just want to plug that in there. So in 2 years, if it's booming, I'm right, and if it's not, at least this was at the end of the video. So hopefully, if you're still with me, I guess you heard it, but most people won't have heard that. So, all right, catch you all later.